What's up? It's your girl Pearl. Today we're talking about changing paths and creating a life you love. Now, a lot of you might resonate with this. A lot of people in my space, my community, are going through a transition right now, are going through shifts and changes and evolving and tapping into what they truly want to do and what lights them up. So I'm so excited to bring up a special guest. I got Karleigh. It's actually my first time connecting with her. Super excited to hear about her story, hear about how she has created a life that she loves and life, which is what we're all about. So I'll bring her up. We'll get to learn more about all the good stuff and how you can create a life that you love as well. Because that's the whole vibe. That's why we're here. Like this is what we're meant to do. Hello. Hi.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so good. So good to connect. Thanks for coming on live.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to dive in today.
Yeah, you're welcome. So first, let's just share like who are you? What's up? What's going on? Tell us about you.
Sure. I'm Karleigh. My friends call me a fairy godmother. I'm a mindset and manifestation mentor. I use positive psychology, human design, and astrology to really help people live their dreams. So I say that I help people maximize their earth experience. To me, that means living up to your full potential, having fun on the way to your vision, and avoiding the top five regrets of the dying. So I do that through a multitude of ways. I just saw actually somebody just joined from my Moon membership. I also have a Mindset Mondays program going on right now, a group program, and then I do mentorship, which will open again in 2025. So I really meet people where they are and just help them get out of their own way to create what they really want and not what they think they're supposed to want.
I love that so much. I'm all about that too, because really doing what you truly want is basically the point of living, in my opinion, and being able to
Totally.
create a life that is aligned for you and no one else, and just being happy and having fun. I love that you mentioned fun because fun is really my daily practice, and so I love that. Thank you for sharing. And so I'd love to hear more about like what brought you to this. What was your journey? I know you made a transition out of a field you didn't love, so tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, actually, that was the confusing part is that I was in her and I really did love it. I
I'm back.
really did. Oh, hi. No worries. Yeah, I actually did love the field I was in before, but during the pandemic, I think like a lot of people, I got to work remotely with my healthcare job. I was working in a cancer clinic and we all went remote to protect the patients. And so I wound up working for 6 weeks from my boyfriend's house in Malibu. And I was like, oh, it was like a taste of the life I knew I wanted, but didn't think I could have because I really wanted to be a doctor. I had been chasing that dream for probably like 11 years at that point. I had applied to med school multiple times. I had been working in that cancer clinic for a little over 2 years at that time. And I really loved it. I felt like I was good at it, which also made it a little bit confusing of like, wow, I'm really good at this. I'm like just the right amount of like detail oriented. I care just the right amount that it doesn't like, wreck me when we lose a patient, which we inevitably do. And so there was all these things that like I did love about it. But then when I was able to grab work and go work from anywhere in the world, you can see the scratch off map behind me. Travel is like so important to me. It is like my favorite thing in the world. It's like what makes me feel the most alive. And if you had asked me back when I was chasing the doctor dream, like, okay, but like, what would you do if you didn't become a doctor? I would say, oh, I would just travel around the world and like figure it out as I go. And
Mm.
the people in my life at that time were like, that's not real. Nobody does that. That doesn't make sense. And like now I think that it's a little bit more obvious, like, that is possible now. And at the time, people were like, absolutely not. But once I got the taste of being able to work from anywhere in the world, I was like, I think I need a new dream. Like the dream I have doesn't fit the lifestyle that I want because once I do become a doctor, I'm not going to be able to keep doing this. And so when I realized that, I was like, okay, I can't let go of this dream until I have a new one. And then the dominoes just started to fall. So in the span of a couple weeks, my boyfriend, my best friend, and the doctor I was working with were like, you would be an excellent life coach. So I was like, life coach, huh? So I started kind of digging into it. I like the doctor I was working for recommends Brooke Castillo's podcast, and I start listening to it, and I'm like, people get paid for this? I've been doing this for free my entire life. People get paid to do this? I'm like, okay, cool. This is a job. That's great. That makes sense. And then I did the Japanese ikigai, which translates loosely to reason to live or reason for being. And if you've never heard the ikigai before, it's what you love doing, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. And if you're curious about that, I do have a free workshop, so I can send that to your followers and they can go do it for free. But looking at my ikigai, what combined those four bubbles was so clearly coaching. And so I was like, okay, I think this is my path and my calling. My first client kind of fell into my lap, and now I do have that life that I like felt the inkling for when I was originally working in Malibu. Of now I've worked in Puerto Rico, Guatemala, the Virgin Islands. My home base is Austin, and I love it here. But I love the freedom. I've even worked in Thailand earlier this year, but I love the freedom of being able to bring my work with me. And now I don't feel like I have to sacrifice one dream for the other. I can meet both of my dreams of traveling the world and helping people live their lives in a way that feels better. The last thing I want to say on this topic is that, like, in the healthcare field, I just noticed that, like, you can repair somebody's body, but if their mind isn't in the right place, you're not doing that good of a service for them. You know what I mean? And so I realized that not only does this give me the lifestyle I want, it lets me make an impact that I feel is bigger, more in alignment with my zone of genius, and really makes a greater impact on the person as a whole.
Yeah. No, thanks for saying that. I agree. I used to be in healthcare as well. And so, like, I totally feel you. And I love that the universe gives you what you need. Like, people in your life were like, hey, life coach, life coach. And you're like, oh, life coach. Like, and you start to, like, go after that inkling of excitement. I really believe, like, the universe drops us these, like, nuggets and little tidbits and little carrots on the stick, and it's your job to like follow that excitement, follow that natural interest. And I love that you've been able to create a life that you love. You're able to travel, work with clients, and do your thing. But I want to talk about the transition there, because a lot of people in my world, what I help my clients with is working on becoming the person that gets to do the action to get them to where they want to be. So what were some of your challenges? What are the biggest things that helped you actually take action towards your dreams? Because so many people just sit there like, oh, I wish this, but it's actually doing the things that really is going to get you there, right?
Yeah. And I see that in the collective a lot lately. I actually created a mindset and motivation challenge that we did last month because I was seeing in the collective like these dreams and then this lack of action or motivation towards the dreams. And I think it's a combination of fear and then just like the thoughts you're telling yourself, along with some identity work. Like if you don't believe you're the kind of person
Yeah.
who does or has it, then you're going to have to work on that first. Like I teach manifestation as like identity, thoughts, beliefs, actions, and it all starts from who you think you are.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer your question, I mean, the hardest part for me was starting the Instagram. I almost didn't start this Instagram that we're talking to on right now because I was so scared of like what somebody I went to high school with was going to think of like, what about that girl that I was mean to when I was like 16 years old on the cheer squad? Like, is she going to think I'm worthy of being a coach? Is she going to like, take to the internet and slander me and ruin my potential of clients? Which obviously is worst case scenario. I have to say I'm over 3 years in. That actually, the one girl I was worried about has followed me, did never do anything. Like worst case scenario, like the action steps that could have happened to led to it did happen, but nothing bad happened from there. And so I always tell people like, if what's stopping you is like what other people think or like how other people might be perceiving you, you're really at a crossroads of you versus what people might be thinking. And every time you have to pick you because you're the only person that has to live with you forever, 100% of your life. And it's your job to make you happy and to like really kind of forget about what other people might be thinking. Also, you heard me go into worst case scenario. And I teach my clients too that if you go to worst case scenario, I need you to go all the way to best case scenario also, because usually what happens is somewhere in the middle. But I do not allow my clients to stop at what's the worst that can happen. We can go there, but we have to end with what's the best that can happen.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like something that I tell my clients is that, it's not about what people are thinking about you, because most of the time people aren't thinking those things. It's what you think of yourself, and it's a reflection of your own inner world and the thoughts and beliefs that you've been conditioned to believe. So it's about shifting your inner, healing that part of you that still thinks like, because I believe everything's a reflection, everything's a mirror. So if you're like, oh, what if she thinks that? It's like, no, like I actually think that of myself. Like, oh shit. And looking inward and being like, oh, let's do the healing work, the clean up the parts of me that think this, and like the self love and the inner child healing and the things that I really think are important. And so that's so powerful that you were like, yeah, she followed me, but like the bad thing didn't happen, because most of the time it doesn't happen like that, right? We think it's going to. And so I love it. The first step for you was the Instagram, getting over the like, oh my God, what will they think? But what do you think was the biggest thing? Like, how did you stay motivated to keep showing up and keep doing the thing? Maybe you didn't see results. I'd love to hear your journey. Like, what were your results like? Were you super on top of everything at the beginning, or was there like a challenge for you to overcome as you built your business and your brand?
Yeah, I learned very quickly that in entrepreneurship, we're better together. I learned very, very quickly. Even some of my first mentors were like, hey, if you are thinking about other coaches as competition, stop. They are collaborators, they are people that you can work with. And that was a big mindset shift for me. Um, as far as staying motivated, so yeah, asking for help. I mean, I hired mentors. Some of them were great, some of them were not so great, but I really did like once I realized that figuring it out on my own wasn't working and got frustrated enough with like, taking baby steps and seeing some results, but really not a whole lot. I was like, okay, I need to hire somebody who knows what they're doing, who can teach me. And so I have had a lot of mentors and a lot of people to push me, but ultimately, like, it's about waking up every day and remembering why you're doing what you're doing. Actually, my dog is 10 years old, and she's not always motivated to move lately. And so I have been thinking about her a lot in this way of, sometimes we call it a cookie, a treat. We'll get her to move, to want to walk. But 100% of the time, if she sees a squirrel, she's going after it. And so I tell my clients, find your cookie and your squirrel. So for me, like my cookie is like it's impact. Like I wanted to help people so much. I'm so good at this. It's like my duty to help the world in this way with their mind and the reality that they're creating. And that's going to motivate me, 9 times out of 10. But travel is really my squirrel, for example. So it's like I
Yes.
really love travel. I feel the most alive when I travel. So when I remember like I'm doing this for other people, my cookie, and for myself, like the experiences I want to do, my squirrel, it's like that drives me forward every time. One of those two things will motivate me and get my ass out of this bed and at this desk to do whatever action step feels next. And then just making it as easy as possible. Like, and no forcing, only flowing. So if you're not in the mood, do whatever it takes to get you in the mood. That can be going for a run, going to the gym, going for a walk, meditating, taking a nap, or an overwhelm nap, as I call it, with my weighted blanket. There's a million things you can do. So if you're not feeling up to it energetically, forcing it's going to lead you to burnout. But finding a way to change your state and then diving into the work is one of the ways you can make it easier so that you can take that action. And I talk about this a lot in the lives I did for my challenge. People think that action comes after confidence, that you get confident and then you take action. But that's not how it works. You take action and then you get more confident, and then you take more action and then you get more confident. And it happens this way in an upward spiral where actually action breeds confidence and confidence comes from action, not before it. And so keeping those kinds of things in mind and doing what you can to make the action steps as easy as possible for yourself, and then celebrating every single one, big or small, regardless of the outcome of I sat down and I opened my computer today and I looked at, research for XYZ. That's a win. That's worth celebrating. It's worth a happy dance, a high five in the mirror, a self hug, whatever it takes, a special treat, whatever it takes to get that extra hit of dopamine and just remind yourself and your brain, like, this is what we want to be doing, and we're gonna feel the full depths of proud in ourselves when we take any actions toward it, because that's gonna keep you going long after the honeymoon motivation, the initial stuff kind of wears off.
Yeah, I totally agree. Those are all such great things to keep in mind, and a big proponent of like celebrating all the wins and all the things you mentioned, and just your scroll and your cookie example was so good because for me, I call that like your deepest why. Like, what's the why that you're gonna really be able to get up for no matter what? Like, what is your deepest desire or thing or motivation that's gonna keep you going? And so, yeah, I love that for you, and I think it's so awesome that you have these two things you get to come back to every day. And like, do you have any morning routines or practices? I'm curious about your mindset practices and what you do every day to keep yourself in that zone and in that mode.
Yeah, well, once I learned that I could control my thoughts or at least manage them, it was game over. I was like, wait, I don't have to be a victim to the voice up here. Like, my first like spiritual awakening book was The Untethered Soul. Sorry,
Oh
my
my
dog
God, me too. That's my favorite book.
in the room. um, it was The Untethered Soul. So he starts teaching about the inner roommate, and I started learning about that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I can distance myself from these thoughts. Like they're not me, actually. They are like automatic thoughts. And once I learned that you could control your thoughts, or at least manage them, right? Like you can't control the automatic thoughts that pop up. That's going to happen either way, but you can decide how you respond to those thoughts. So I really went from having an inner critic in my head that was really hard on myself. In business, there is a lot of failure at the beginning, especially I'm a 1-3 in human design. So there's a lot of failures that are necessary for me to learn. And so learning not to let those mean anything about me, there we go, learning not to let those mean anything about me, and to just like take the experiences that come with them and remember like this is all part of the process, and not letting my inner critic be hard on me for those failures, for those mistakes, and actually answering it with what I have my clients call like your inner goddess or your inner queen,
Yeah.
which gets to respond to those thoughts. And sometimes, in your best friend's voice or in my voice, if you're not comfortable doing it yourself, telling that inner critic like, hey, you are not going to talk to my friend like that. We're going to talk to ourselves this way instead. And once I practice that over and over, my baseline thoughts are like, I don't want to say it this way, but this is what's coming through, like eerily cheerful. Like I'm the
Same.
happiest girl I know.
Same. It's totally fine to share that. It's your truth, right? Like, same.
Like I genuinely wake up with a smile on my face, and I like feel the depths of gratitude, like manifesting this trip to Thailand. My parents and my family are like, how does this kind of stuff happen to you? And I'm like, I feel my gratitude fully. I spend a lot of my time in alignment with the feelings that I'm experiencing on this trip, and I've now created a life where I don't have to ask anybody to take off. I get an opportunity and I get to go, okay, sure, I can work around that. That sounds good for me. So managing your thoughts, and then to answer, so that's my biggest mindset tip is inside your brain, you get to be your own best friend. If your brain is being anything but nice to you, that is action step number one of not letting your brain talk to you like that. Nobody gets to talk to you like that, including you. And then to answer your question about morning routines, I like it variable. I have ADHD. I like a lot of flexibility. And so I use a goddess morning menu. So I believe that's what I call it at least.
I love it.
It's like 11 items. Yeah, my goddess is like, that's the version of me that has everything I want. Like, I call her goddess. Some people would be like, that's a little vain. And I'm like, you can be your own goddess too. I don't mind. But it's about 11 action items that are just options for me to do in the morning. I have them in a place where when I wake up in the morning, I can literally look right at it. And it's oracle card readings, it's green tea, it's a walk, a meditation, going for a swim. It's anything that will make me feel good in the morning that I can do if I want to. And it's variable amounts of effort required depending on like where I'm at in my cycle or what I feel like doing. So like sometimes I will want to work out. Sometimes drinking tea in bed is enough. So yeah, just letting that flexibility and having that list in an accessible place so I can see and check it out. What's your morning routine like?
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same. That's why I also suggest, because it's so hard to be something I realized for myself, and then eventually I share with my clients is like it's hard to do the exact same morning routine every single day and be consistent. Then when you fall off, like, oh shit, like I fell off, like, oh my God. But when it's like, hey, I can do all these things, these are all things I call a feel good list, all the things that make you feel good. And you can do one, you can do two, you can do, and it doesn't have to be for a long time, whatever makes you feel like aligned. And that's what I do. So I have a list as well, but I always meditate. I meditate twice a day because for me, meditation is like always my go to. It's changed my life. And I know it's so boring, Tamara. And then I have other things I do. I usually always journal in the morning too because I have a lot of thoughts that come through. And I journal. The morning for me is the most potent for my
Mm-hmm.
creativity, for my downloads, for content ideas, for next steps in business. I feel like I'm most aligned with my highest self in the morning and I have all these like really potent things to do. And so I'm like, okay, I do that. And then maybe I'll stretch. I have a dance party every morning too as a part of my mindset work as well. And then I'll do like other things. Maybe I'll look this and listen to a podcast or go for a walk or but it looks different. But I definitely always have that morning meditation as my anchor, and then I get to like evolve whatever feels good. Yes, let's go. Yes, yes. Anyway, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. I wonder, so for you, one thing I want to talk about, and you mentioned this earlier, was that you had a transition. You wanted to be a doctor or in the medical field for like 11 years. Flowers and bats. Lol. Sorry, I was laughing at the comment. And so tell me more about your identity shift. Like, because I know when we believe, I had this for myself too when I was in the medical field. I was like, I am going to be this. I am this. Like, yes, this is like everything I've been dreaming of for years. Then you're like, oh, actually, like, that's no longer aligned. What was your experience for identity shifts and like maybe the healing process you had, or what was that process like for you in terms of becoming the person you are right now?
Yeah, such a big question. So I hope I'll do it justice in my answer. But yeah, I was chasing it for 12 years. So I feel like there's some background required to like really understand this. I was 12 years old when I decided I wanted to be a doctor. And I wouldn't find out until I was 24, 12 years later, that that was a trauma response. One of my friends died of cancer when I was 12 years old, and it wrecked me.
Mm,
I saw it coming, but not enough. I didn't understand death. I was only 12 years old. I thought for sure he was gonna make it. He was like the most godly person I knew. I just thought for sure if anybody could, get those strings pulled by God, it was him. And I just was totally in disbelief that he would ever die. And then he did, and it just wrecked me. We were very close. And I remember deciding in our seventh grade English class, the first day he wasn't there, I know what I'll do. I'll be a doctor. I will save kids like him so that kids like me never have to feel like
mm,
this, which is
wow.
obviously a very rudimentary way of looking at it. I don't think his doctors had anything to do with it. Some cases are, have good outcomes and some cases don't. So it was a lot of naivety in my thought
That's
process. But I went through high school and I was pretty motivated to be a doctor or at least a nurse. And then another one of my friends died of cancer when I was 17. So I am now a senior in high school. I was only in high school for 3 years. So I'm on my last year of high school and have another friend die. And I'm like, oh my God, well, this must be a calling. God wouldn't kill two of my friends with cancer if he
Oh.
didn't want me to do this. And in hindsight, I'm not resentful of my former self for that thought
Mm,
process because medicine saved me in many ways. So I went on to college. I was pre med in college, which I think kept me out of a lot of trouble. I did get in some trouble in college, like, we all do, and like fell in with the wrong people. But I actually think my desire to be a doctor, like this really ambitious, high caliber career, kept me focused on studying, in the library a lot, not partying quite as much as I would have if I, had known that I could get by with just my psychology degree. Because I loved psychology, I was very good at it, which is another hint of like, oh, this being my field. Like I have a Bachelor of Science in Psychology with a minor in chemistry, and so like I really do love psychology. And so that journey of like, okay, here's what happened to make me want to be a doctor was like, okay, I kept going all the way through. And then I got into the cancer clinic and I was working there for a while, very good at it. But one of my key indicators was looking around one day and realizing I don't want any of these doctors' lives. Like
Yeah.
I don't, none of like they inspired me in the way they cared for patients and like, their heart that was clearly in it for them. But I didn't want any of their lives, which was really telling for me. And so I did have to grieve it. I remember sitting with my therapist and crying, and she was like, why, like, tell me what's going on as you're crying about this. And I was like, I think my 12-year-old self is just mourning the fact that we're not going to do what we thought we wanted to do. But I can't let my 12-year-old self make all of my decisions for the rest of my life because she didn't have all the information she needed to make a wise choice. And her conditioning was so limited that she didn't. Oh my gosh, if you told my 12-year-old self what my life is like now, she'd be like, no fucking way.
Yeah.
She'd be like, that is unbelievable. Like, I got truth bumps. It's almost like I can feel her being like, yes, you know? And so I did have to grieve it. I did have to cry about it. And for me, it was really important to not set down my dream until I had a new one, which took me on the exploration process that I mentioned at the beginning of the live of finding out, like, okay, what is my zone of genius? What do I want to do? I was right in many ways. I did want to help people. I did want to help them live better, healthier lives that, made them happier and more fulfilled. I just thought I wanted to do it by, ridding them of a really terrible disease. But I think, I kind of am still ridding them of another terrible disease, which is like, your mind really working against you and sabotaging you before you even start.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'm so sorry about your friends, but I truly believe everything happens for you. And like you said, like everything that happened in your journey is made you who you are today. And like all the experiences you've had have shaped your perspective and why you want to help and why you want to do, the things you're doing right now. And as a full circle moment, actually, I feel like what you shared was like, oh, you want to help people, for example, your friend who had cancer, but it's like you get to help people with the mind. I believe the mind is the most powerful thing we have in our human bodies. And I'm of the belief that a lot of the mindset shifts and a lot of the negativity and toxicness can cause cancer, right? I'm big into Joe Dispenza, and so he talks a lot about that. But yeah, you're doing God's work, girl. It's like you were doing what you meant to do, but through a different lens, right? I think that's so beautiful. So I just am so happy you were able to find your path, and like everything always comes together and works out. I'm curious, as we wrap up, what would be your maybe number one tip or piece of advice for people that want to take the leap and go do something they've been dreaming of for a long time? What would you say to those people?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to try. For me, the only failure is quitting before you want to. It's not quitting in general, it's quitting before you want to. Everything else is a learning experience. So I think you have to try, you have to be willing to fail, and on your way to, or fail, but on your way to your journey, do the best you can to be supportive and think thoughts that are in alignment with that journey. Like, we all have naturally critical thoughts, but it's your responsibility to answer those thoughts with thoughts that are more in alignment with the person you're becoming. And, a lot of things that come up when you are first starting something new is imposter syndrome. So if you are dealing with imposter syndrome, ask yourself this really important question. Am I an imposter or am I a beginner? Because it's okay to be a beginner. It is okay to be trying something new for the first time. And if you are an imposter, if you do feel like, if that answer to that question does feel like yes, then what kind of learning do you need to do to feel more comfortable in not being an imposter? But if you're just a beginner, like that differentiation is really important because it really kind of avoids the spiral. Like imposter really talks about like a spiral downward of like, I'm a bad person, I'm doing bad things. A beginner starts at the perspective of I'm learning right now, I'm trying, and every step I take is getting me closer to my goal. So it's really about connotation and denotation of the words you use with yourself and with your friends and family. And maybe don't always share your big dreams with people who aren't used to thinking in that capacity, because their doubt, especially at the beginning stages, can create whispers of your own doubt. So I guess that's one more thing. I know I have answered this question in the longest way possible, but that's one more thing is if you notice doubts coming in, make sure that they're your voice. If they are someone else's voice, you can tell them to get out of your head, and like that's conditioning that you really don't need anymore. You have to kind of be willing to look at your thoughts of like, where did this come from? And is it really in alignment with what I actually believe? Or is it easier for me to assume that the person who told me that has all the answers so that I don't have to take the risk of discovering for myself?
Yeah, those are amazing. Like these are all things, I mean, I can relate to that in my experience, and I'm sure people watching can as well. So thank you for sharing that. I just gotta go for it, you gotta try. And I believe like if it's meant for you, if it's on your heart and your soul, like you are meant to go do that. And the journey is gonna look different, but go do the thing that's on your heart. Go do the thing that lights you up the most, and it's all gonna work out because it always does. So thank you so much, Karleigh. I'd love for you to share where people can find you if they want to reach out and what you're working on in the next couple months.
Yeah, the best place to find me is right here on Instagram at Aligned and Empowered 111. I'm here quite a bit and always answering my DMs. I also run my Instagram completely myself, so you're never getting like a bot or anyone, but that's not me. So you're welcome to DM me, especially any like reflections or takeaways you have from this. I would absolutely love to hear them. Like, what was the most impactful thing for you? And I'm going to keep running Mindset Mondays. We will probably do another one um, probably early next year. And that is my group program that is about getting out of your own way and taking those action steps. So it's like a productivity accountability club that has the best people in the world in it. And it's really the best way to get those things off your to-do list and on your to-done list. So I have that going, and my mentorship will open back up in 2025. And then I have my Moon Manifestation membership, which is ongoing. The next one will be the Aries full moon on October 17th. And that's only $11 a month. You can come and do the moon rituals with me. So on new moons, we manifest. On full moons, we release and express gratitude. We have a moon membership girly in here right now. So hello. And it's really just an amazing community full of incredible people. And the results that have come from moon manifesting are insane. So the value is definitely there. And I would just love to expand that community if it's feeling in alignment for anyone in your audience.
I love that moon manifesting. That's so fun. Well, thank you so much for giving your time today, sharing your insights, your perspectives, and your story. It's been a pleasure to have you here. And of course, I will talk to you very soon. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day and reach out to either of us if you want to talk more about things. But that was amazing. And I will be heading off now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Pearl.
Bye.